Hey there, Detroit sports fanatics, and welcome to another edition of my Detroit Sports Show right here on blogtalkradio.com, live from the northern outskirts of McBain, Michigan, with yours truly, your host, Taylor Phillips. That's me. This is the Pistons edition, and if you have opinions or want to join in on the conversation, you can call in by phone at 646-478-4837. Again, that's 646-478-4837. The show will be 15 to 30 minutes long as always, and then after this show is all said and done, it'll be archived so you can all listen to it again because it is recorded. Again, the guest phone number is 646-478-4837. That's 646-478-4837. You can also post your opinions and comments on my talk show post or on my timeline on my personal Facebook profile, Taylor Phillips, at facebook.com/Phil1DT. Phillips has two L's, by the way. On my Detroit sports page, Taylor Phillips's Detroit sports page, at facebook.com/Taylor's sports page. And join, like the page and become a fan, and join Taylor Phillips's Detroit Sports Group. Also, follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips. I'm also on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Google. I am the name Taylor Phillips. I am simulcasting on YouTube via Google. There's also a chat window on blogtalkradio.com for you to comment any opinions you want. So before we begin, here are the guidelines for all the listeners of tonight's show. Number one, if you have called in, stay on the line so I can get to you for a talk. If you hang up by mistake, not a big deal. Just redial this number, 646-478-4837, and then stay on the line. Number two, keep it very clean. That means no profanity, vulgarity, graphic violence talk, criticism of the host, distasteful disregard, or anything else below the belt of any subject matter. Number three, treat each other with respect. Number four, if you don't know much about Detroit sports, you can still just listen to my show for education and entertainment. And number five, only I can change the topic because I'm the host of my own show. So, we're going to recap the past week's games and address a major situation about the Pistons' fourth quarter woes. The Pistons were playing the Minnesota Timberwolves last Tuesday, and they got shellacked, 121-94. Their defense and their free throw shooting were completely horrible. The defense had allowed 121 points total, at least 30 points in each of the first three quarters, and 25 in the fourth. Their free throw percentage was at 50% flat. They were out-rebounded 46-39. They committed 20 turnovers. That's another virus the Pistons can't exterminate. The free throw shooting, the turnovers, and the oh so sluggish play in the fourth quarter. And we have Adam from Detroit Sports Podcast on Twitter. How's it going, Adam? Good. So I'm just recapping the Pistons week in review through tonight's overtime defeat to the Trailblazers. Andre Drummond and Greg Monroe. Andre Drummond had 8 points and 8 rebounds in 29 minutes last Tuesday, and Greg Monroe the same night had 10 points and just 2 rebounds in 20 minutes. Chauncey Billups returned after a 14-game hiatus due to a left knee tendonitis injury. He was pretty rusty, going 2 for 7 from the field. I'm sure he's getting a little warmed up. The Timberwolves had 31. What's that?
I kind of think what you're kind of seeing from the Pistons lately is kind of what we're going to get all season long. I really do believe they're about a sub 500 team. So I think it's going to be a lot of good with a lot of bad, and that's kind of what we're going to get all season long from these guys.
Yeah, I agree, Adam. And the Pistons just have to keep getting better, especially in the fourth quarter. They have to find some kind of spark, some kind of energy to light them up, and to help them refuel or something like that.
Yeah, I think closing out teams for the remainder of the season is going to be something that they're going to have to work on and that they're going to have to get better at doing. And I think the longer that the season goes on, the longer that these guys play together, I think they're going to get better. I think it has to happen. Because they look really good for 3 quarters, and then it seems like they just blow it to the game, getting away from them in the fourth, and then they tend to lose it in overtime. I think tonight's game against Portland was a prime example. They were doing a really good job controlling that game, and then fourth quarter kind of comes around, and they're nowhere to be found. You can't find them anywhere. And they go into overtime, and they lose the post when in OT. I think that's just the way this team's constructed right now. But I think after the All-Star break, I think they're going to get a little bit better. They kind of have to, I think. They're just going to start to, I think, gel, and I think they will get better. I think Josh Smith will start to perform better. He'll look like the Josh Smith that we all kind of wanted when we brought him in from free agency. And I think that Raymond Jennings will start to really facilitate more and really fill out as that point guard that we want to see.
Yeah, another issue I want to address of the Pistons is their free throw shooting. They were 50% from the free throw line Tuesday against the Timberwolves. And let me check out the free throw shooting against the New Orleans Pelicans here. Bear with me for a second. Free throw shooting, it improved by 13%. Still at 63%. It's still not good enough. That's one of the things that cost them that overtime loss Wednesday in New Orleans. And the Pelicans led most of that game. And the Pistons.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a prime example is watching Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond, for whatever reason, when he gets to the stripe, he is awful. For whatever reason, he can't hit that just the easiest shot in basketball, and he can't nail that. There's other guys on the team that really struggle from the line, and I think you're right. I think you're right on something right there. they need to sure up their free throw shooting. It's the easiest shot in basketball.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The turnovers, they just keep turning the ball over like 20 or 15 times. 20 turnovers committed against the Timberwolves, 15 more against the Pelicans. Against checking out the Brooklyn game stats. Turnovers 13, free throw percentage 71 Friday at the Palace against the Nets in the 4.103 to 99 victory. And the Pistons actually, there's a good stat. Pistons outscored the Nets in the paint 60-38. That's one of the positives that the Pistons need to keep up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the play of Andre Drummond, Greg Monroe, Josh Smith, they're so large, they're so long down low that's a huge asset for that team going forward. That's something that they really need to, that Mo Cheeks really needs to kind of delve in and kind of build around that. Because they are one of the largest teams in the NBA down low. So outscoring teams in the paint and in and around the basket, that I think has to be a key and a staple for them if they want to get better and they want to get above 500.
Even another flaw, their defense leaving opposing players wide open behind the three-point line too many times. I see the percentage of those wide open three-point shots going into the hoop is like around 80 to 85%. You have to stay with your men. There have been too many Pistons players bunching up in the lane a lot of times and just not covering the arc. They all have to watch where their opposing men move around the defensive side of the court.
Yeah, defensively, they're a very quick team. That's one of my biggest frustrations with this team. Is just you go back to the 2004 Pistons and you go back to the bad boy era Pistons, and the teams were built around defense. And it was one of those things that you really liked to watch because they were so talented defensively. This team is
I miss those guys.
Porous yeah, me too. The team is so porous defensively. I think they currently rank 20th overall in defense because they give up so many points. It's just it's so sad to see that they can't tighten down. And defense, really, all that is effort. Defense is really just effort and making sure that you're on your man. So it's frustrating to watch that and see that from these Piston players.
Yeah, I agree. Maurice Cheeks has got to light a fire in their defense and in their fourth quarter as well. It's just that simple. Maurice Cheeks is going to do a better job coaching. He's almost not doing anything to help them out at all.
Yeah, I really think he just kind of throws balls out there, just kind of like, go ahead, boys, play. I think you kind of see that in some of these games where they get away from them. So I don't think his pedigree as a coach, I don't really think has been tested and tried and true yet. I think this is one of those teams where they've got a lot of young talent and a more advanced coach, somebody who really has earned their keep, would be able to take them under his wing and really develop them. And when these games get close in crunch time, he'd be able to show them how to close it out. I think right now Mo Cheeks just kind of says, all right, boys, go out and play. They go out there and they play, and then in the fourth quarter, the game gets away from them. And you see it on the defensive end where they're not closing guys out, like you said, behind the arc, and they're not really doing their job defensively. That's why they're giving up so many points.
Yeah.
I think Mo Cheeks.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right to call him to task, take him to task on that.
Yeah, the lane is also what they need to cover too defensively. That game-winning shot by who was that again? Damian Lillard's Damian Lillard with 1/10 of a second to go in in the first overtime was indeed the dagger of that one. And their fourth quarter woes again got them into this overtime rut. I have to look on one bright side of the fourth quarter. In that Pelicans loss, the Pistons outscored the Pelicans 22 to 13 in the fourth quarter. But other than that, it was just all downhill from there. The rest of those games.
Yeah, I agree with you. This team, I think for the remainder of the season, they're gonna be a frustration. You know, like I said, I see them going 500, maybe being a few games above, maybe a few games below. And with a 500 team, I think you kind of get what you paid for. You're gonna see them where there's gonna be games where they look like, wow, they go and they beat the Miami Heat, and you're like, wow, this team's gonna be 10 with the Miami Heat. And then they're going to turn around and they're going to drop the game to the Pelicans, where they sit there and they outscore them in the fourth quarter, but they sit there and they lose it in overtime. Or they play a game against the Blazers and they sit there and they're working the Blazers up and down the court, only to sit there and relinquish that lead in the fourth quarter and then lose the heartbreaker in overtime. So I think it's going to be a lot of good, a lot of bad for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Adam. The Pistons have scored 15, 17, 22, and 17 points in their last four fourth quarters, and that's 32 plus 22 is 54 plus 17 is 71. Divide that. If you divide that by 4, that's 35 and a half. Divided by 2 is 17 and 3/4 points per fourth quarter the last 4 games. That's a bit low. And
yeah, that's just not going to get it done in the NBA nowadays. You need to come in, you need to put up at least 20 in your fourth quarter to really close out a lot of teams. So, what you said, almost 17 and a half points. Like we said, that's just not going to get it done. And that's just not winning basketball in today's NBA. Teams got to come in, and teams are usually strong. And the good teams tend to close out the bad teams in the fourth quarter, and they tend to do it by at least, with a 20-point fourth quarter, if not a 22, a 25-point fourth quarter. So, I think they're building to that. They're not there yet. Teams are going to be a work in progress, and I think as the season progresses, it'll be one of those things that it kind of gets worked out. And I think going into next year, we'll have something to kind of hang our hats on, and we can say, yeah, they're going to be a little bit better, and we can expect to see them competing with the Miami Heat, the Indiana Pacers, and holding their own against those teams.
Yeah, and touching on the overtime periods, the Pistons are winless in overtime. Let me see here. Let me refresh this Pistons schedule webpage here. There we go. We have the result.
Yeah, they haven't won an overtime game this season.
Yeah, they were outscored 12 to 10 by the Trailblazers earlier tonight, and back on Wednesday in New Orleans they were outscored 15 to 10 by the Pelicans. They were outscored 27 to 20 the last 2 overtime games. Were those 2 overtime games the only overtime games the Pistons went into, or I'm having a tough time trying to.
They lost. Their second game of the year was an overtime loss, and that was to Memphis. They looked really good through most of that game, and again, that one got away from them in the fourth quarter and ended up losing it in overtime. And then they lost against New Orleans, and they lost against Portland tonight.
Yeah, so they're 0-3 in overtime, right?
Correct.
Yeah. 28 to 16 to 13, the overtime period. They're back in Memphis on the second very second game of their regular season, and the Pistons need to improve in overtime, not just in the fourth quarter. They're also
just closing teams out. I think they really need to work on that. I think that comes more with the maturity for that basketball team as they progress, as they get better, and as they tend to gel and learn each other. I think they'll become a better basketball product, and that product will get better at closing teams out in the fourth quarter and then in overtime when they get there. I think right now what you kind of see is you see them fumbling, you see them kind of almost like, imagine take a baby zebra. A baby zebra is born, and when it starts to try to run, it's going to sit there, it's going to stumble, it's going to fall, it's going to look awkward. And I kind of think that's where they're at right now. I think they're in that fumbling, awkward stage where they're just kind of learning each other, learning how to close out teams. Who's going to be that guy who steps up and closes these teams out? Who's going to be the guy who takes that big shot and puts the nail, in the coffin and puts that dagger through the opposing team's heart? And I think they're just trying to work that out right now. I think as this team progresses, all that will get kind of figured out, and the later half of the season, they'll be a lot better at that. Maybe when they get to the playoffs, I do think that they're a playoff caliber team, and I do think that they will get to the playoffs. Hopefully by then, all that gets worked out. Maybe they'll make a little noise in the playoffs. I don't really see them going very far in the playoffs, but maybe they'll make a little noise. And like I said, coming next season, we've got a little something to hang our hats on.
I agree. So let's go ahead and look at the standings here. The Pistons are in 5th place in the Eastern Conference, still in 2nd place in the Central Division. They stand at 11-14, just 10. They are 10 games flat back from the first place Indiana Pacers. They're still ahead of the Bulls, the 9-13 Bulls, who are in 8th place. For the Portland Trailblazers, they're in 1st place in the Western Conference at 21-4, just a 3% winning percentage behind the Indiana Pacers, who are the best team in basketball. And now I want to go ahead and preview the next 4 games, starting tomorrow night in Indiana. The Pistons are taking on another tough team like they did tonight. The Pistons have, I think one of the keys that I want to address for the Pistons to beating the Pacers, I think they have at least a 30 or 40% shot of beating the Pacers unless they start playing better in the fourth quarter and start covering the 3-point arc better than they have thus far this season, and just limit the turnovers more. And then on Wednesday.
I agree with you.
Then on Wednesday that they're in Boston.
I'd like to expand a little bit more on your point for being Indiana. It's not just getting better at covering that outside shot. I really do think that overall defensively, especially down low, you're going to be going up against Paul George. He's probably the best player in the NBA right now. So you're going to have to lock him down. You're going to have to minimize that outside shot. You're going to have to rebound. You're going to have to hit the glass so hard against the Indiana Pacers, because that's the one thing they do really well. They don't let you out-rebound them, and they do play a great defensive scheme, and they do beat you up on the defensive end. So the Pistons are going to have to go head-to-head, really work hard to beat these Indiana Pacers and really sit there. I think they're going to have to almost double team Paul George because he is a premier player in the league right now.
So they also have a game in Boston on Wednesday against the Celtics. By the way, you people can catch the Pistons and Pacers game tomorrow night at 7 on Fox Sports Detroit. The Pistons at Celtics Wednesday at 7:30 on Fox Sports Detroit. The Celtics staying at fourth place in the Eastern Conference, first place in the Atlantic Division at 11-14. Both the Pistons and Celtics are have the same exact record. You got a scouting report out on the Celtics?
Celtics, you know what? They're a young team. I like what they're doing with the new coaching staff that they have. That they brought in Doc Rivers out, and they brought Brad Stevens in, and it's a young team, and it's all basically predicated on what the point guard can do. I know Rajon Rondo's been a little bit beat up this year, so I don't know if he's going to be 100% for this game, or if he'll even see action in this game. But I think with Boston, I really think you're going to see two young teams really going at each other, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top of this game. And like you said, they have the same exact records. I think they have a lot of the same strengths in the way the offenses work. They're both point guard driven offenses. So seeing who comes out on top of it is going to be interesting. It'll be fun to watch this game. I don't really have a scouting report for you. I just think it's going to be fun to watch this game. It's going to be interesting to see how these point guards match up against each other and how these offenses work against each other.
And then the Pistons start a two-game homestand on Friday against the Charlotte Bobcats at 7:30 on Fox Sports Detroit, and then the Charlotte Bobcats are in sixth place in the Eastern Conference, third place in the Southeast Division at 10-14, and the Pistons welcome the Houston Rockets the next night on Saturday, 7:30 on Fox Sports Detroit Plus. The Houston Rockets, I'm looking at, are in fifth place in the Western Conference, 16-9, second place in the Southwest. Any idea how the Pistons will fare those two games? I got like 2 minutes.
You know what, Houston, I think is going to be a key matchup here. Charlotte, that's a basketball product that's kind of in transition. They're trying to build something for the future. Pistons should beat Charlotte. Houston, on the other hand, Houston's going to be an interesting game. You've got James Harden, who is just a monster. The guy can do so much. He's a big man who can dribble the ball, shoot the outside shot, sit there, drive the lane, dish the ball out, take it hard to the rim.
90 seconds.
It'll be interesting to see what they do. The key to that game is going to be rebounding. The Houston Rockets are second in the league in rebounds per game, so they're going to have to out-rebound them and work them on the glass. That will be the key to that game.
Okay, Adam, I thank you for your time tonight, and tomorrow at 11 I'm going to host another special Tigers off-season edition. So my time is up for the Pistons edition of Taylor's Detroit Sports Show. Thanks for calling, Adam. If you're available, I'll talk to you tomorrow night at 11.
Awesome. Sounds great. Taylor, if you don't mind, I don't know. I know you spoke with John from Detroit Sports Podcast. You guys can follow us on Detroit Sports Podcast.
Yep.
Look forward to doing this again with you real soon. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, thanks. And folks, you can follow Detroit Sports Podcast on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. So for now, I am Taylor Phillips, signing off by saying TTFN, ta-ta for now. I thank Adam for this opportunity to talk with me for this Pistons edition of Taylor's Detroit Sports Show. So I'm out of here. Talk to you tomorrow at 11. Peace.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.